What's going on, guys? Rodrigo here with Asheville Real Estate News. Really excited about the episode we had today with John Kucsera of Avl Real Estate School. We talked a little bit about, the process of getting your license, what that looks like, who it's for, how it plays out, things to be aware of. But mostly, we had a little bit of a tangent talking about affordable housing and solutions to that. So John has a background in looking at this type of thing. There's a name for it, totally forget. So listen to the episode and you can get into it. But we got into it and we had an idea of maybe doing a panel. So if you're interested in being on a panel talking about affordable housing specifically here for Asheville, let us know. We're trying to set that up. All right, y'all, listen to the episode, share it. Thank you. See you guys next week. Well, John, welcome to the show, man. Super excited to have you on and to connect. Glad we can do the crazy things like this virtually nowadays. It's fun.
It's Thank you for having me here. Really appreciate it.
I was thinking, were you in real estate when we were playing soccer together? I was wondering about that because I think it's sometimes like you get these like micro, I don't know, like communities, I guess. And sometimes you forget that people have lives outside of it. I definitely know, like playing soccer, that happens to me a lot.
I might have been. So I've always been in real estate in a way.
Right.
So I was doing it in California, and even in Texas. But I probably wasn't an active real estate agent here yet, maybe then.
Okay.
But I would work with real estate development companies, and I work with developers like urban planning and those kind of things throughout my experience.
Yeah.
So yes, but maybe not technically.
Yeah. Funny how that works out, right?
Yeah.
Spend all that time and you just forget that you have overlapping worlds. But
I know. And then I look you up and I'm like, geez, he's got this huge empire. Well, I don't know about empire, but I don't want to stroke your ego too bad. But
no. I mean, you can talk it. Like, you can manifest it.
Okay. Good. But here you are, and you're doing the podcast. I'm like, oh man, and it was just nice to. Because I know you as a person, and you want the best in people that you can, that you really enjoy and connect with. Yeah. And so when I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's awesome. So it was cool to do that. It's like your son that goes to Stanford. You're like, yes.
Awesome. No, that's a good way to put it. It was kind of very similar for me when we connected. I was like, oh, like you do this. Should have talked about it a long time ago. Right. But let's talk about it. So how did you end up getting into real estate whenever it was that you first got the bug and you started, down this path?
Yeah. So I've always been in education. I've been, doing education. I taught at Texas and then at UCLA. And then while I was at doing that, part of my studies was looking at civil rights, fair housing, segregation issues, urban planning. And it all kind of went back to housing is everything. Yeah. And it just all circles back to, where you live dictates pretty much your schools, unless you have like a magnet program like Asheville. Yeah. It dictates your friends. It dictates your liquor store or your Whole Foods that's nearby, whatever it is. It dictates your circle. It dictates your crime rate. Yeah. There's so many things that it dictates. And then it just kind of just all centered back to housing. And I'm like, we really got to help people and get out there and help as many people as we can that deal with housing, whether that's developers, planners, real estate agents, you name it. That's how it kind of started, and now I'm always intertwined in.
What was your initial exposure to it? Like, I mean, I know you're saying like you got into it, but like, why did you go down that path? Why did you get into these issues and get curious?
Yeah, so I was doing policy, and I was looking at policy about why things are the way they are, and how can we make it different through policy procedures. And that's when we started doing research about, okay, what are the indicators, like the well-being of this community? What is the well-being of this population? And it just started you just see the scales, just the unequalness, the inequality that was happening. It was like, man. So the more, you go to foreclosures, you go to mortgages, you go to, you even look at gender, the differences in salary. Just any kind of inequality. And I've always kind of been motivated by discontent, like something that bothers me. Really motivates me. I want to get out there and try to change it. So that's what started it. And I was like, God, if it all goes back to housing, you have all this inequality, all this unequalness, what can we do to help? And then from the research, I was like, I got to get out. I can't stand behind the curtain. and I got to get out and start practicing. I got to go to commissions. I got to go to boards. I got to talk to real estate agents and try to help as much as I can.
What was I guess, when did your education on all of this start, and when did you start like being like, oh, okay, I understand what I need to do. I'm going to get my hands dirty. So like, when did you go from investigating, looking into things to, okay, I'm going to start doing now?
Gosh, probably I'd say about 5 years ago, I'd say. Maybe it was with my own kids. Maybe it was, when I started to see, I don't know. It's a really good question. When I started to be active, I think it just hit a point where it's like, all right, you could sit on the pillow all you want and meditate or the cushion, right? And then there comes a point where like you got to get out in the world and start doing it. And we were helping, like we were changing policies. We had this big thing in New York City that we were helping with policies and segregation and housing and schools, and it was really great. And it did probably make a bigger impact than I'm doing now. But I think the reward of teaching sometimes, and the reward of working directly with somebody, you automatically see it, like, or not automatically, but it's more of a direct impact. And I think teachers relate to me. When you're in policy, it may have a bigger impact, but did it really help that family down the street? You don't really know. But in real estate or, in teaching, you do see it. You do see moments. And maybe it's more of a selfish, rewarding thing for me to see more of the direct impact.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, like, I mean, there's so many conversations that come from that point, right? Of like, do you make a bigger impact like volunteering at the school or building the school?
Right.
Yeah. Like, and it's always that, like, it's a really tough balance to know, like, how do you make that impact? Right. And I don't know. I mean, what did you find the answer to that question? Obviously you've chosen one over the other, and like, do you feel good about that? And
yeah,
like, do you feel like solidified in that decision, or is it more like, do you wonder? Do you still have what ifs? I guess. Maybe that's the best question.
I think as we grow up, we'll always have what ifs. I remember a tenured professor. They do those speeches about culminating their life, about why they got to it. And he's like, it all makes sense at the end. I mean, it's all windy, and then at the end, you're like, oh yeah, I can see where that all fit. So no, I think I'll always go back and forth between direct impact, doing research and doing policy, because it's all important. It's all encompassing. Yeah. So I can see myself switching. I probably don't stay in one lane as much as I should. I like to meander. And going downhill.
Yeah, no. Man, well, that's super cool. Like, I think it's great when you get to have the ability to change between going, granular focus and then pulling back out and go to 50,000 view. And if you're able to play in both worlds, I'm assuming you're going to show up better for both of those scenarios because you have the big context, right?
Yeah. I mean, you get lost, right? So I'll be very heads down and focused, and then I'll kind of forget to pull my head out and be like, oh, what's going on with upzoning? And you know what I mean? Or something like that, or gentrification.
Yeah.
And I think, life is about balance, right? As we both probably know with kids and all that. So yeah, I think having a nice balance of that is probably the right mix. Yeah, good question.
So, how did you end up here in Asheville? I know you mentioned a couple of other cities and your education and did I read correctly? You have your doctorate as well?
Yeah. So I have a doctorate as well. So I was doing my postdoc at UCLA, and I was working for the Civil Rights Project. Like a think tank, like research, right? Yeah. And then I was looking for a collegiate, like teaching college, again, like leaving that and going more teaching again. And then we found Asheville, and there was a private research group here in Asheville. And they were like, hey, why don't you come work for us? And I was like, Asheville? What's Asheville? So Lindsay and I, my wife, we got here, and we're like, this is it. I mean, because, we're from Austin, and it's like, it's a smaller Austin, better weather. And then as soon as I started finding out about the issues, remember that discontent that I was hooked. We have affordability issues here. We have very disparate populations of people, both in age and in color, and it's just like, this is great. This is to me right now, this is home. Cool. I was in California, and there was a stop sign by me, by my condo, and I love California. You get the beach and whatever. Yeah. And we heard one day, we were out there on the porch, and we heard about like 17 honks and yelling at like a stop sign. People were like honking at people, cussing at people because they took too long at the stop sign. We're like, we can't raise a kid out here, being from Texas, the hospitality.
Yeah.
I like Asheville. What about you? What brought you here?
So I came to Asheville the first time in spring 2009. I was doing like an outdoor program, kind of like Knowles or Outward Bound. Mm-hmm. And we spent some time here doing some hiking in the Smoky Mountains and kayaking, like in Bryson City, and nothing crazy, but just like around. And Montreat College has a soccer team and they had a good outdoor education. I was like, oh, like this is cool. There's mountains and the winters aren't crazy and the summers aren't hot. I'm like, okay, like check. Like that works. And so I was like, all right, cool. And so as soon as the program came, I went down, tried to like make things happen soccer wise at Montreat. Like I played, but not like, no scholarships or anything like that, just for fun.
Oh, you played? That's cool.
Yeah. Just the JV team and just had a good time. It was a blast, but nothing, it was just playing. Not too much different than what we did when we played together. And then I was there like a year and a half. Was not a good fit, but Asheville was a good fit. So I stopped going to school there, and I just kind of got involved in. I worked in like a million different like odd jobs, like most people do when they first get to Asheville. And so I like found my footing and landed in what I'm doing now. But yeah, that's how it was. So I moved here fall of 2009.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, what is it, like August right now? And it's like 70?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. It's like woke up this morning, it was like 50 degrees. I was like, this is great. So, I'm very much a sweatshirt weather guy, jacket guy. So, but so you moved here then 5 years ago. Did I do my math right and link the dots together? 2014. So 6 years now.
Yeah.
And so you got here part of a think tank or a research institution, I guess. And
and I started doing things a little part-time, and then after that, it was, all right, let's make the full jump.
And so what, if you were going to say you had one focus right now, what is it?
It's got to be the school. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still doing the real estate on the side. I'm also doing renovation and real estate, which we could save that for another thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. But in a way, it's a way to make affordability a little bit for people here. So it's one solution. Basically, we do pre-sale renovations. So we fix it up, we put the money in it, and then we sell it with them so they can earn more money. And we try to do that because we don't want maybe like a flipper to get the money. Nothing against flippers.
I was going to say, we're gonna have fighting words on this podcast.
You and I have a different, but it's a way that if someone is leaving, instead of leaving it just like, distressed, this way they can have a lot more money in their pocket.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm doing.
Understood.
Right now, it's more the school. Again, it's all about discontent. I was at a professional school here, which I probably can't name. And I enjoyed myself, but I wanted to change things around. They were like, we don't really do that here. Okay.
So, sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That was my decision. I was like, okay. And then here we go.
I'm trying to make sure I word this properly and appropriately. What do you think is the biggest differentiating factor with the school that you guys started? What's the name of it? Also, like, how do you find it? And it's a real estate school, right? So it's pre-licensing, post-licensing. I don't know what else.
Continuing ed.
Okay.
8 hours a week.
So that's your focus. So your clients or your customers or whatever, they're agents who need to just check boxes off, right? What's your unique proposition, or why is the school different than, the other one here in Asheville? And then why did you feel like you have to go outside of that to get what you were looking, or to be able to provide what you thought was important?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of points there. I think the main one is that I just felt that education for agents should be better. And then how do we define that? It's just got to be better in my mind. So when I was doing my own, when I had to transfer my licenses here, I had to pretty much start over. But I had my education from over there to here, and it was just like, man, is this all that? Is this how it's done? And it seemed like that's what it was. So I tried different schools. I went to everyone across the state, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty much the same. And I just felt, I think it can be better. And that's probably egotistical, I know. But I just, there's some things like, so for instance, the cost. Not many people know, like when you first go into real estate, there's multiple paths to get to where you want to be. You chose a different path. And it's, you're reaching success. For real estate agents, the path is kind of carved out. So, we have another path another path to get to that mountain, whatever. And so it's just, how can we make that very easy? And a lot of people don't know, it's like $3,500 coming out of starting today, it'll be about $3,500 in dues that you'll have like in your first year. That's a lot of money. And I feel like if you're going to make that much of a commitment, A, you got to know about that cost, and B, let's make it right. Let's make it worth it. So we try to do like low overhead. Right now it's just me. We just have Zoom. So we're trying to do it so it's affordable to people. Just because we don't want that to be a barrier. This is a cool gig to, sky's the limit in terms of financials, but you also have to hustle, but it's a nice avenue for people. Second careers, first career, third career, it doesn't matter. It's really cool. And you can do a lot of good. And that was the other thing too, is like, all right, so we want it to be affordable. We want it to have a good focus. So not just teaching and lecturing. Let's do training, mentorship. Watch me do a typical transaction with a client. Just anything that we could do so that when you graduate, when you finish your pre or post, you know what to do. Mm-hmm. I remember after I graduated, I didn't know. I was like, okay, so I know how to pass that exam, but what am I supposed to be doing? And I'm very curious on your training too, because I know you did the whole different path with the workshop and those. And I bet you it was more mentorship, was it? Or was it just?
Man, so I think I've talked about this on the show, but not to answer your question. I went to one of those, seminars, show up, you're going to become a millionaire in 30 days. I was like, done, drink that Kool-Aid. Yeah. Here's all the money I've saved up to my point in my life. All right, I'm ready to get going. Crickets. Okay. So basically I paid a ton of money for somebody to tell me, go network with people who are doing what you want to be doing and do everything you can.
Right.
Work for free, run around. It doesn't matter. Build a relationship with somebody who's successful in what you want to be doing. And so that was it. And then, YouTube University, Google books, podcasts, et cetera. But no, I mean, like I paid a lot of money to go to these trainings and seminars, and man, I think like seminars are great. I've learned so much at seminars, but like the seminars that I've gotten the most out of, even like ones that are expensive as you get, anybody who's gone to seminars around the real estate industry, it's like crazy what tickets are. I've gotten the most out of ones where I've got like an understanding to build off of. Like they're not, for me at least, it was not a good entry point. It was a build on top. Oh, you have experience. Like here's how you can go from a 5% close rate to a 20% close rate, or this is how you can market better so you get better, that type of stuff. And then where I learned the most is just like talking to people here in Asheville who like are investors, and how do you do that? Oh, can I call you about that? Just that. So that was way better than anything I got at a seminar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure it's probably the same with like the real estate courses, because I mean, it's a lot of times right now, at least in the world that we live in, it seems like education is very theoretical, and then you actually get into the practice of whatever you're learning, and it's very different.
Right.
I mean, I hear that all the time. Doesn't matter what field you're in, and I'm assuming it's the same thing with the course, right? It's like, just memorize stuff. Then as soon as you pass, you can forget everything and go out and do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I mean, you probably are a lot like me. I mean, I wasn't very good in school.
Yeah.
It was very, especially high school, upper grades. And then, I finally realized like, I got to find a way out. I'm going to be doing contracting with my father or whatever for the rest of my life. And then I got to work, and then I just started to realize the power of what you said, of like finding success, finding mentors, doing the work. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do the grind, you have to hustle, and the hustlers, I think, can do it.
Absolutely.
So what we're trying to do right now in the school is we're trying to do that. Not just my experience, but I'm trying to bring in other real estate agents if they can. So then they're also promoting their school or their firm. So maybe they can get more agents.
Yeah.
But I want them to talk about their experience. I want, get like someone like Chase Hanks to talk about mortgage. Let's just do a podcast or, like a little recording.
Yeah.
Who's better to know about mortgage and financing than you?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. Having people who are doing it talk about it from like, hey, this is what it's like. Yes, this is the book stuff you need to pass the test, but like also remember, here's the practicality of how you apply it. Right. For me, that's how I would learn a lot better like that.
Right. So get ready. I am going to come to you and say, hey, I need a a video that we can show the student about investing, lease option, whatever it is.
Yeah, just let me know. I'd be happy to. I'm always happy to talk real estate in any whatever capacity. So.
Right. And I think the third thing, if I could just put the plug in, the third thing I think we're a little bit different is the focusing on being socially responsible, whether it's into your community, whether it's broader than that, as you said, a little stepping back. But I do think Asheville and the other areas around us, we need to work on that. We need to be socially responsible in terms of how we do real estate, how we do marketing, who we're helping. I remember the best case I remember we had a pre-licensing course.
Yeah.
We had a COVID kind of a contest. And it was basically who can mow the most neighbors' lawns. And this one guy came back and he mowed 27 lawns. Like he just went around and he just did
Jeez.
that. And I was like, that's marketing. Not only are you helping people, you're helping people out. They don't have to touch you.
Yeah.
But they're gonna know who you are. They're gonna know
they're gonna remember that.
Remember that. And if all marketing was, I don't know if you want to say good marketing, but if all marketing was like that and you just have your name on your chest or whatever, be an indie card, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Think about all the good we could do,
Yeah, I think, I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar's quote of you can always get what you want if you help others get what they want first. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I butchered that completely, but the essence of it is, it's like, if you want to, whatever your dreams and goals are, it's probably always going to be in alignment with helping other people first.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that, and how it plays out is very relative, as we can see the whole world ahead in front of us. But bringing it to Ash, talking about being responsible and doing good, affordability here in the area is probably the number one hot topic issue that everybody talks about.
Right.
And you obviously have context for this, which is much more than just experience. I'm sure you've done research, or at least can bring other things. What is maybe not the solution, but what are the steps to take to either find the solution or start addressing it, or how do we get involved in a good way?
Right. Well, we got to have awareness, right? So that's probably our first step. So yes, if it's not being talked about, let's talk about it. I've been told so many times not to say things, not to question things. And I'm like,
question away. You got a platform here. Get on a soapbox and go.
Yeah. Where would we be if we didn't question things?
Yeah.
Slavery, women's rights, you name it. So absolutely. So I think that's the first thing. Start questioning. Do we need the zoning regulation? Do we need another high rise? I don't know. These are the things that we need to talk about. Everything can change. Everything, it's up to us to figure that out. And I think awareness, research, I do think it starts with there, probably because I'm biased and that's where I go. But then after that, it's action research. How are we going to act on that? And as real estate agents, as people in the real estate agency area, you know people, movers and shakers, what we can do. We can influence developers. We can influence investors, high-end people. We have opportunity zones coming. We have people that are going to start putting money in. How are we helping or hindering that investment? Are we monitoring it? Or are we just going to let them do whatever they want and then they're out in 10 years? You name it. Gentrification is huge. What are we, number 1 or number 2, I think, in the nation? In terms of the...
did not know that.
Yeah, it could be outdated. I think it's 2018 or 2019 from Realtor.com.
Wow.
But yeah, we're pretty high, and so is Portland, so is Austin, so is, you name these other places. And how are we going to protect our community so it just doesn't, they come in, people go out. Okay, no, they go out, they go in. How are we going to live in this, I don't know, kumbaya, holding hands, utopian kind of a place? I'm not saying, but I think there's things we can do.
Yeah, it's I'm a big fan of mobile homes as being part of the central pillar to the solution here. In my opinion, I think it's the best way to go. And you mentioned zoning regulations, and I think it's sometimes a little challenging to, I don't know what else is more affordable than a mobile home and still can get you a lot of the comparable benefits or results that you're looking for with, traditional stick built, but oftentimes 20%, 30% of the cost. So
that's a good point. And if you think of the tiny houses on wheels, right? So they're considered RVs under a certain square footage.
Yeah.
And then even if they don't have wheels, right? Then they're still not even considered, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then you have macro homes, which I think is a brilliant solution, right? I think it's like over, what's that one community over there in Tunnel Road? I think they're like 440 square feet. I'm like, it's brilliant. It's like, all right, so you're going to outbeat the zoning.
Yeah.
Make homes 440. I think they cluster zones, so they put them all together so they have land.
We actually had a conversation with that. I think, do you know the guy who runs that? I think it's Drew, and I don't know, but we had him on the podcast.
I know of them.
Yeah, he had that's what he was talking about. So that's what I'm wondering. I'm trying to make that connection.
Well, Drew was part of the ADUs and all that, and he's trying to do tiny homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tunnel Road. Yeah. There's actually a community development. I can't think of the name right now. There's a development that they got the land donated to them. And Beloved Asheville, I think, is doing that. Asheville,
yeah. We had them on the podcast too and talked to a great conversation.
So that's a great idea. Community grants or land grants.
Yeah.
That controlling the land, separating the land from the
house.
Building,
yeah.
Another great way. And you could do it with developers. Developers can still make money. Investors can still make money, and just do it in a socially responsible, or however you want to call it, triple return, triple profit. People. What is it? People, profit, place, whatever it is. Plan.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think that there's so many like ripple effects, and I don't know, like the gentrification thing here in Asheville is a really tough thing because a lot of the benefits of home ownership come from increased value through appreciation and equity gain, right? Like that's the argument for home ownership that I typically hear. But then in a situation like Asheville, if you guard too much against gentrification and things like that, then you lose that appreciation that's been incredible for so many people here in Asheville if they own their homes, right? And so it's how do you balance that? Because if you put a ceiling on it, then those prices are just going to stay the same, and you're not going to get those benefits that, in theory, home ownership should deliver to you. So I don't know. Again, I'll go back. Mobile homes, we got to figure out how to create a situation where they're a little bit more acceptable. I know there's a lot of people that this is a passionate issue for them, affordable housing. I also think that there's too many, NIMBYs, not in my backyard conversations too. It's like, oh yeah, let's do all this work, but just don't do it close to me.
Right.
So
you got zoning changes that are happening in 28801, maybe, that's on the board. I think you make a good point. I think everything has got to be looked at. You have a agenda.
Yeah.
I have an agenda. I mean, if we have all these people with agendas, I think it's great. I think we can talk about it. We can try to figure out something that we can do. Gentrification, there's a ways to do it, and people have done it in other cities.
Yeah.
That's what's great, is that we can look at other cities where we can do pilots, and we can figure out what works, what doesn't. There's a way that you can do it. Just because you can charge $700,000 for your 1,500 square foot home doesn't mean you should. Even though I know that a lot of people want to, and
I push back on that. Because that's the whole benefit of having a home, though, right? The whole benefit of home ownership is that you buy a house, it increases in value, and then you milk it for what you can. And that's how you build wealth, right? So it's like, if we're going to put a compressed value on housing and encourage people to not sell for what they can get for it, then we're essentially saying, home ownership isn't what it's meant to be.
But what happens if everybody does that? Everybody does that. All these, we're almost at Boulder prices. We're almost at $400 per square foot. We're not.
Yeah, the market will correct.
All right. So, and then we keep going. I'm okay with that if wages can go up with it. I'm okay with that if we have jobs that can support it. If we don't have those kind of things, that structure here, then I have a little bit of an issue. How are we going to support that?
So I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. And I think that like wages is an important component to this conversation. But who's going to measure what's appropriate or not? Like, why not let the market determine it? Because if I'm a homeowner, I've owned my home for 10 years and I'm like, man, I'm good. I'm selling now. And then the government's like, well, no, you max out at $250 a square foot or whatever the case is. Like that's not appropriate by any stretch of the imagination. Like, so how do you rate? Like, I just think it's a slippery slope when you're having outside intervention dictating prices on something like that. Because why would you buy a house here then?
Right. Well, I've never heard of a government policy that says you have to charge under this. You know what I mean? I don't think.
How else? But I mean, how else do you regulate a home price then?
By the market, right? And then you also regulate about how much that we would appraise it for, or value it for, the building cost of things. So there's different ways that we can look at what a home should be priced. And then of course the market is the market. Market dictates.
Yeah.
But we can also, at the same time, let's just say the market does that. We don't cap it. I don't think there is anything that does cap it.
Yeah.
So that continues to go. Personally, I'm not going to support that. Just because it's probably not going to sell. And if it does sell, great. But personally, I probably won't. But that's just my moral, my ethics, whatever. Other people were like, yeah, right, let's try it. If it sells, it sells. And it doesn't. But my thing would be, all right, so let's figure out.
What if the comps support it? What if the comps support it?
Well, the comps will, because the more people that do it, and then it sells, and then it does it, and then it sells, and then it does it.
So what's the argument? What's the argument for not doing that? If you bought a home and you were sold the idea that this is how you build wealth, which is the whole supporting argument for home ownership, right?
So your question is personally, why would I not?
If somebody was saying to you right now, should I buy a house or should I rent? What would you say?
Buy, of course.
But then you're also saying that, but I don't want you to sell it for as much as you can when you get the opportunity to.
Okay. Here's the thing. I don't want you to sell a market above what it should be sold.
But who's determining that? If somebody buys it, then it's selling for what it should sell for. Exactly.
Yeah, I think the problem that happens is that, all right, so let's say someone says, no, look, I think it should be $750. Most homeowners do, right? They think that it should be worth more than what it is. So then they try it. And then my thought is, I've seen it in LA. I've seen it in Austin. I've seen it where it keeps going. And then if we don't have the infrastructure to support it, that's where we get back to that socially responsible thing. All right, so, okay, let's continue to do that. But how are we going to support the continuing rise?
But we don't necessarily have to support it, right? Because when we can't support it anymore, then the prices will compress because nobody's paying for them anymore.
I don't want to go through foreclosures. I don't want to do anything like this. I don't want to kick people out that can't afford to buy a home here. I want to try as much as I can. If we're going up, let's try to get everybody to go up. That's my point.
And I agree wholeheartedly with you, and that's why I don't think you should cap. Because if you buy a house, you should be able to capture as much as you possibly can out of it.
Oh, well, I mean, but I have a lot of beliefs here. So you're asking me as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
If someone says, hey, I believe that this home is worth $350, and they want to do like $375. All right, I'm in a problem with that. Now, if you want to list it for like $500, I might say pass, and I have a right to pass.
100%, but that's a little bit of a different thing versus like throwing up a Hail Mary and then just pushing the envelope a little bit on values based on comparables, right? Like, I think those are two unrelated conversations.
Maybe.
Because I think you're not, like, I mean, as an agent, you're right. You've got a fiduciary duty. You're not being responsible to your client by accepting to list their house at 500 if you think the value is 350.
Oh, right.
Well, you would get in trouble for that, right? You should get in trouble for that.
Technically, we have loyalty and obedience and all this, so I technically have to follow what they say, and that's why I don't take the job. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. We have
fair enough.
But I hear what I'm all about free market. I'm all about
so
I just want everybody to come with us. I don't want
I want to have you back on to do like a whole episode on just this because I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I think we have a lot to like work through, and I think we probably see pretty similar to this, and there's just like a couple tweak variations. But I want to go back to education, being responsible, and what's your school's name? How do people get in contact with it?
So it's AVL School of Real Estate, or AVL WNC School of Real Estate. And then you can just go to avlsre.com. And everything's there. We try to make it very simple. A lot of websites have all these bells and whistles. We just want to say, hey, here you are. Where do you want to go? Here's one.
You have a simple website.
Yeah. And if you want to go to Rodrigo's school that he's going to start shortly, we'll have it right there, and you can help people mentor.
No schools opening up shortly on my end.
Okay, on your end. All right.
But I mean, if you're opening a school, then we can happy to have you back on to have another conversation and talk about what other educational things that you're putting out there. Because I agree with you. I think that more information needs to be out there, and there's too much bells and whistles, and sometimes people forget about the importance of just talking about nuts and bolts too. Yeah.
I mean, we just try to be simple. We just want, when you come to our school, we want it to be affordable. We want it to be high quality. I want to have experts in there that can give you expert advice, not just me. And I just want you to think about the bigger picture. As we're talking about, just jumping back and say, what are you doing? And why are you doing this? Not just for your benefit, but for everyone's.
Right.
And how you can benefit yourself while benefiting other people.
For sure.
I know mowing lawns is a kind of a funny example, but there's a lot you can do, and people would appreciate that and know you, and building that network of people, and definitely come back to you. And and I just mentorship, man. I think it's important. We need better agents out there. I think we need it. So that's why I'm here.
I agree wholeheartedly. So John, what's the best way for people to connect with you individually, or is the school the best way to do so?
The school, it doesn't matter. It's just info@avlsre.com. But you can look me up as an agent or a contractor or whatever. I'm juggling, but I'm trying to focus on this one. I got people helping me over here, but you know how it is.
Awesome, man. Any parting words to wrap this thing up about anything we've talked about, anything we might have missed, or whatever you feel is important, anything you're excited about, et cetera?
No, I mean, I think this online approach is brilliant. I think I'm glad the commission went, 100% online to say, hey, you can do courses like this. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of flexibility of what we can do. Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot of enjoyment of people that are loving the classes. So I'm glad. Can't wait for your video. So
let me know. I'd be happy to do whatever I can to help or the education side for sure.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And I'm serious. I will be sending you an email or text to get another conversation to talk.
Let's get a panel.
Yes. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yes. Let me work on that. I think.
Get Drew on here. Get other people. I'd love to hear their input.
All right. Let me. On record, we'll make something like that happen. Don't know exactly what it'll look like, but we will do it for sure.
Cool. Always love talking to you.
As well, man. Have a super good day. Thanks for hopping on here. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny, thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.